All right, this is every house blackfire theory. Let's just get straight into it. Um, so for context, if you don't know who the blackfires are, there's this guy, King Aegon the Fourth, the Unworthy. He was pretty. He was a pretty bad king. He had a son with his cousin, Princess Dana Targaryen. Um, this was not his wife. His wife was actually his sister, Queen Nerys Targaryen. Um, and the son, Daemon, he liked this son a lot more than his true-born heir, Daeron. And Daeron was born like 17 years earlier. He's the son of King Aegon the Fourth and Queen Nerys, who I mentioned earlier. But he really seemed to prefer this little guy Daemon. And he gave Daemon the sword Blackfyre, and Blackfyre was like the sword that all the kings had. A lot of symbolism there. Aegon the Conqueror wielded it, so big for the Targaryens. And then when Aegon the Fourth uh, lay dying, he decided to pull out this genius move where he was going to legitimize all of his bastards, notably in our case, including Daemon. And so Daemon started his own house called Blackfyre and began years later, I think, 14 years later, started a series of rebellions that would last generations. Also, spoilers for like everything. Uh, Main Song of Ice and Fire series, Dunk and Egg, House of the Dragon, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, World of Ice and Fire. Everything's on the table here. First year we're gonna start off is like pretty chill. Just that King Daeron the Second was a bastard. This is what uh, like the legitimacy of House Blackfire really like rests on. Um, House Blackfire or Blackfire supporters would generally claim that King Daeron the Second was a bastard, and he was not actually the son of Aegon the Fourth. His dad was actually Aemon the Dragon Knight, who was Aegon the Fourth's younger brother. There's a couple points in favor of this. General rumors around the court, around King's Landing. Aegon the Fourth seemed to be a pretty big peddler of this theory or this rumor. Another thing in favor is that one time an attorney, the Dragon Knight named Nerys, the Queen of Love and Beauty, but this isn't like that big of a point. Just because Aemon is like he's on the King's Guard, like it'd be kind of weird if he named anyone else besides his sister. Like if he named some other baddie, like I feel like that'd also be pretty controversial. So also in favor of it, it would be like pretty cool. It'd be pretty cool if King Daeron was a bastard, in my opinion. King Daeron the Second was a bastard. That's because it makes things more interesting. Like the Targaryens in this case that we see are actually illegitimate, and people generally see the Blackfires as pretenders. But if this theory is true, then they're actually right, and they're not pretending at all. They're um, yeah, and also like makes the story less black and white. I think George kind of likes that. Um, some points against it is that Aegon the Fourth didn't disinherit Daeron the Second. So if Aegon like really thought, and Aegon was a horrible king. Aegon did a lot of dumb shit. If Aegon really thought that Daeron the Second was a bastard, he would have just disinherited him and made Daemon his heir, like very explicitly. Um, so clearly, like even Aegon the Fourth himself wasn't like that convinced, even though he was like the main proponent of this theory, of this like rumor. And then we also just have a general like lack of evidence. Um, yeah, there's like all the points I have in favor here are like very weak. So yeah, moving along. A theory is that Bloodraven loved Daemon. So Bloodraven was the son of King Aegon the Fourth and his Blackwood mistress. So he's Bloodraven, another one of the great bastards. He has a quote from A Dance with Dragons. He says, "I have my own ghost, Bran, a brother I loved, a brother that I hated, a woman I desired. Through the trees I see them still, but no word of mine has ever reached them. The past remains the past. We can learn from it, but we cannot change it. This is Bloodraven to Bran and Bran 3 Dance of Dragons. This is him just essentially telling Bran that even though you can observe the past, you can't actually affect it, which is like cap because we see Ned react to Bran trying to reach out to him. But anyways, that's besides the point. Brother he hated is definitely Bittersteel, Aegor Rivers. Woman he desired for sure, Sea Star. But the brother that he loved, like, it's not in too sure, honestly. Like, Bloodraven wasn't really the type of character where we got an impression that he was a very loving person. Um, so like the base assumption is, oh, he loved King Daeron II, his older half brother, which is why he supported him so heavily in the Blackfyre Rebellion and the Blackfyre Rebellions to come. But I feel like it'd be more interesting if he actually like loved Daemon, but he was obligated to fight for the Targaryens just because he had like prophetic visions of the future or something like that, and he knew that like he knew the Blackfyres needed to lose in order to like defend against the White Walkers or some shit. It would just add a layer of tragedy that I think would be pretty interesting. Okay, next we have that the Velaryons supported Daemon Blackfyre. This is a pretty interesting theory, in my opinion. I quite like this one. Not that I didn't like the other ones. Um, Actually, the previous theory like is kind of mid. I don't I really could care less either way. This one, I think this one's low key true. So we are never really given much information at all on who the Valarians supported in any of the Blackfyre rebellions. So we don't know if they were pro Targaryen or pro Blackfyre. And this theory is proposing that they were pro Blackfyre, at least in like some of them, which would be notable. So first of all, Damon's grandmother is Valarian. Damon's mom is Dana the Defiant, and Dana the Defiant's parents are Aegon the Third and Daenerys Velaryon. And Daenerys Velaryon is actually like more Velaryon than a lot of like the main Velaryons. Like a lot of the main Velaryons are descended from Corlys and Rhaenys Targaryen, and Rhaenys Targaryen's like super Targaryen, not very Velaryon, whatever. And then on top of that, a lot of the main Velaryons are like descended from like Bela, for example, is Laena's daughter, and Laena's directly descended from Rhaenys. Like there's a lot of like half Targaryen stuff going on, and then Bela's dad is Daemon Targaryen. He's like full Targaryen, right? So a lot of like the mainline Velaryons are very very Targaryen, whereas Daemon's grandmother, Daenerys Velaryon, is just like the daughter of Corlys's cousin, or maybe the Oakenfist's cousin. So like not being intermarried much to the Targaryens, at least as much as like the main line, for example. Um, so yeah, I found that interesting. Um, this theory that the Valarians support the Blackfires would explain their dramatic fall off in political relevance. During the dance, they like kind of carried. Pre-dance, they were getting intermarried with the Targaryens. Every generation, every other generation. I mean, it was so common, so common. Alysanne is a Valarian. That's Jaehaerys's wife. Aenys is wait, no, that was stupid. Wait, Jaehaerys and Alysanne are brother and sister, but their mom was a Valarian. Um, Aegon the First Targaryen, his mom was a Targaryen, and then before the conquest, like they intermarried with Velaryons all the time, and then in the lead up to the dance, lots of political marriages between the Targaryens and the Velaryons. That was the backbone of the Blacks alliance. They were incredibly wealthy. They had the big navy. They're just moving different. The Valarians were like house number two in Westeros. It was the Targaryens and it was the Valarians. And then over the past, looking at like the main A Song of Ice and Fire series and the like say 100 years before that, going into like the Dunk and Egg era, we don't really hear much about the Valarians. It seems like they're kind of nobodies. Like the Starks are more relevant than them. The Lannisters, like every other like main great house, is more relevant than them. You feel like the Tullys are more relevant than them, and that wasn't really the case at all. Like during the dance, for example. Um, and after Daenerys Valarian, there's never a direct like Targaryen Valarian marriage. Well, if the Valarians supported the Targaryens like main enemies, that would explain this a lot. And the Blackfyres like lost the war, the Valarians would have like suffered some penalties for that. That would explain their like steep drop off in political relevance a lot. Also in favor of this is that the Valarians might like harbor some anti-Dornish sentiment because the Oakenfist, Alan Hull, the bastard son of Laenor, but really the bastard son of Corlys, uh, fought against the Dornish during Daeron the First conquest, like attempted conquest of Dorne. This is relevant because the Blackfyres are fighting against Daeron the Second, whose wife is Dornish. So like a lot of the people who were on the Blackfyres side, like in the Reach, for example, um, just didn't really like the Dornish. They felt like, why are we admitting the Dornish to the Seven Kingdoms? They're getting special privileges, blah, 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 blah. A lot of anti-Dornish sentiment on the Blackfyres side. Um, some points against is that you can say, oh, the Valarians lost a lot of power post dance. Maybe it was because they supported the Blackfyres. Well, they lost a lot of power post dance just because the dance was like crazy as shit and had a lot of stuff going on. In the Battle of the Gullet, the Valarians lost a third of their fleet. Spice Town got sacked. High Tide was burned. All the wealth of High Tide got burned. Um, there were other like random uses of the Valarian fleet that could have like decreased its size. Like they went against the Greyjoys, I'm pretty sure, out west, and they went on a couple other voyages. Also, the Targaryens really don't need to marry other Valyrians as much, considering there's like not really dragons around anymore. Um, like uh, when there's not dragons, like what's really the advantage of marrying other Valyrians? When you can make more strategic political alliances, like marrying into Dorne, for example, to bring another kingdom into the fold. Another thing against it is that in the aftermath of the Dance of the Dragons, there Lord Unwin Peak, I'm pretty sure, had was one of Aegon the Third's regents, and he was beefing with Corlys and the Oakenfist. So the Valarians just may not like the Peaks, and the Peaks are one of like the main Blackfyre supporters. Also, the Oakenfist is rumored to have slept with Alejandro Martel, and so if they have good relations, like why go against Dorne? Um, but that could go either way. They could be like angry exes. Is that's kind of a neutral. That's kind of just a moot point. Also, it's a rumor. Like it may not even be true. But moving on. So for this theory, we've got Bloodraven assassinated Fireball. Um, so Quentin Ball, also known as Fireball, was a pretty like major player for the Blackfyres in the first Blackfyre Rebellion. He before the rebellion started, when King Aegon was still in power, he was like the master at arms in the Red Keep. So he trained Daemon, and then once the rebellion started, like he commanded in some battles. I think did some pretty notable things out west with like the Lannisters and stuff. And then supposedly, apparently, the day before the Battle of Red Grass Field, which is like the battle of the first Blackfyre Rebellion, he gets shot by a common archer while stopped for a drink of water. That's like mad suspicious. So points in favor of this theory, we just have Bloodraven because he definitely did that shit. Bloodraven, Bloodraven definitely did that shit. Bloodraven is an archer. He commands the Raven's teeth, and they all use bows. So and even if it like wasn't Bloodraven, right? Like Bloodraven maybe warged a raven, got eyes on where Sir Quentin was hanging out, and then sent a guy off to go do it, or he just went himself, or a billion other things. He looked through the weirwood and saw, oh, fireballs over here. Let's go get him. Like super suspicious death. Um, in in the Sworn Sword, Eustace Osgray is like, oh man, if only Fireball didn't get assassinated the day before, maybe we could have won that war. And it's like that's like maybe that's true. Maybe Fireball's presence could have turned the course of battle there. But yeah, this is like Blood Raven for sure did this shit. Um, this is canon to me. Okay, Bittersteel was homophobic. This is like a pretty like obvious theory, like not too many implications. Basically, the second Blackfyre Rebellion was pretty lame. Uh, had some notable absences. Bittersteel himself being one of them. The Sword of Blackfyre, that's one of them. And you may be thinking, oh, where's the Golden Company? Technically, wasn't established yet at this time. Um, but yeah, so Damon the Second was like clearly gay. If you just read like the Mystery Knight, spoilers, sorry, I'm just throwing like all these shots at Dunk, like, oh, I wish we could touch lances or like whatever shit he's saying to him, right? And then we overhear this conversation while Dunk is taking a piss about how Bittersteel is not supporting him, and they don't say why he's not supporting him, but like it's probably just because he was gay and Bittersteel didn't really fuck with him. Um, and a lot of people were like homophobic in these kinds of like medieval settings. Like I think homophobia is like the default, to be honest. Um, but yeah, moving on. Another big theory concerning the second Blackfyre Rebellion, which is essentially canon at this point. There's so much supporting evidence. Is that Sir Maynard Plum was a Blood Raven. Sir Maynard Plum was a hedge knight uh, who was at that wedding tourney at White Walls, and the morning that Blood Raven like pulled up to snuff out the rebellion, they go look for Sir Maynard Plum, and he's nowhere to be found. So the theory goes that Blood Raven was using a glamour to like appear as this fake hedge knight that doesn't really exist, Sir Maynard Plum, to like keep an eye on things and influence stuff and whatever. Points in favor of this is Blood Raven, man. He definitely did that shit. But no, I actually have some evidence for this one. A bunch of quotes. So one day, I think they were like eating. They're at like some feast, and Dunk goes, "We'd all be bastard sons of old King Aegon if half these tales were true." And Sir Maynard's like, "And who's to say we're not?" Well, if Maynard's Bloodraven, then he really would be a bastard son of old King Aegon. So it's like a little ironic. Yeah, whatever. Pretty obvious. Um, Another quote from Mystery Knight. This close, there was something queer about the cast of Sir Maynard's features. The longer Dunk looked, the less he seemed to see. This is like just typical glamour, suspicious, shimmering stuff. I don't know if you've like, I don't know how deep y'all delved in like a Dance of Dragons, but this is like similar to what we see there. And we get something similar. Through the rain, all he could make out was a hooded shape and a single pale white eye. It was only when the man came forward that the shadowed face beneath the cowl took on the familiar features of Sir Maynard Plum, the pale eye no more than the moonstone breech that pinned his cloak at the shoulder. So yeah, he's, you know, mistaking and having trouble seeing and making out his appearance. This is what we'd expect for a glamour. Another quote. So I surmise he showed the ring to Maester Lothar, who delivered him to Butterwell, who no doubt pissed his breeches at the sight of it and started wondering if he had chosen the wrong side and how much Bloodraven knows of this conspiracy. The answer to that last is quite a lot. Thermina Plum said that. And that would be really ironic if he was Bloodraven, because, oh, how much does Bloodraven know? Well, Bloodraven knows a lot, because I'm Bloodraven. Ah, I gotcha. Um, yeah. And then some other, well, just a couple more. points is that Sir Maynard wore a moonstone, which is like a possible glamour conduit. We know Melisandre wears like rubies for it, so moonstone's like similar enough. Both of them are long, with like straight. They have thin. They're both thin with long straight hair. Most of this is like from the wiki's page. Like even the Song of Ice and Fire wiki has a theory page on this. That's how like established a theory this is. They both call the wedding a nest of adders, which is just like a really specific phrase to be using. He knows Egg is Aegon, which how do you know that? How do you know that? He calls Duncan Dunk. You're not supposed to do that. If you really had just met Sir Duncan and he's always been introducing yourself as Duncan, I guess you could come up with Dunk if you just thought you were buddy buddy with him, but it's a little suspicious. He obviously has a mysterious disappearance. He is way too informed of politics. Like, what hedge knight is watching MSNBC for Westeros every night before he goes to bed? Like, what are we doing here? He defends Bloodraven's politics. This is also like narratively speaking, just like a parallel to Daemon II's fake hedge knight identity as Sir John the Fiddler. And then, Bloodraven has his fake hedge knight identity as Sir Maynard Plum. Like, it's pretty interesting. And then we have some points against. Um, well, why would Bloodraven need to be Sir Maynard Plum if he already has sources? He already had the troop of dwarves who stole the egg, and he already had that random virile man at arms who got killed for yapping. Um, why not one more? I mean, he has 1,000 eyes on one. This looks like two. He's got two, well, two groups, but this looks like maybe how many dwarves were there? So let's say there's like six. That's 12 eyes plus the two from this guy. It's like 14 eyes. He's got like 900 and something more eyes to go. Like why not? Anyways, next theory is a third Blackfyre Rebellion theory, which we really don't have a lot of information on. Is that Aerion Brightflame killed Hagon the First? So we know next to nothing about this. We know that Hagon the First was killed after he surrendered. The quote we get exactly from the Lord of Ice and Fire is the pretender Hagon the First Blackfyre died in the aftermath of battle, slain treacherously after he had given up his sword. Um, and then we also know that Aerion likely committed some ill act during the war, just because Aerion has always been kind of a dick. So we get this quote of the deeds done then, both good and ill, of the leadership of Maekar, the actions of Aerion Brightframe, the courage of Maekar's youngest son, and the second duel between Bloodraven and Bittersteel, we know well. We actually don't know them well, Maester, whoever wrote that shit. Um, but yeah, deeds good and ill. Okay, leadership, that's not ill. Actions of Aerion Brightflame, okay, that could for sure be ill. Or good, maybe he's turning over a new leaf. The courage of Egg. Yeah, that's great. Courage is good. Second duel between Bloodraven and Bitterstool. I mean, I guess there can be some ill stuff done there, but like, it's a duel. That seems pretty cool. I wouldn't say duels are like good, but they're pretty cool, and cool is good. So it really only leaves Aerion Brightflame. And this theory just connects those dots. Like, Aerion did something bad. Hagon died in a bad way. Maybe Aerion did it. I mean, there's not much details to this theory, but it's just like put the pieces together, you know. All right, next theory. This is one of the main ones. This is probably the Blackfyre theory. This is the most relevant one. Young Griff is this guy who was supposedly Aegon Targaryen the Sixth, the son of Rhaegar and Elia Martell. Well, Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell. John Connington and Young Griff both like seem to really be convinced that Young Griff is Aegon. Like, Young Griff seems to think he's Aegon, and Connington seems to think that Young Griff is Aegon. But we've got a couple of reasons to like not believe that. So first of all, we have Dany's like um, House of the Undying visions in the Clash of Kings. I don't know if it was House of Undying or like a random dream, but the Mummer's Dragon stuff where they're talking about like black dragon on cloth poles and blah blah blah. Like, definitely some other dragon or some fake dragon that Dan needs to be on the lookout for. Theory is that this is young Griff. And then we have the Golden Company breaking its contract with Mirror to join up with young Griff. So like obviously suspicious. The Golden Company's whole shtick is that their word is as good as gold and that they never break contracts, but suddenly they're breaking contracts. And the video saying that some contracts are written ink and some are written blood, and the Golden Company is a blackfyre company, and da 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 da. Like, okay, like super one of the most obvious points. Illyrio says specifically that the male blackfyre line died out. Why would Gurm include that if he's not hinting at the existence of a female blackfyre line? Like, come on. Another little discrepancy is that Aegon the Sixth Targaryen, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell, should be 18, but when Tyrion sees him in a dance with dragons on the Shy Maid, or wherever they meet, I'm pretty sure it's the Shy Maid, he only looks like 15 or 16. Now, this isn't like that strong of evidence because, like, one, Tyrion can just be like wrong. Tyrion can just like be judging ages not very well. And also, even if Tyrion like is judging ages like perfectly, you can be 18 and look 16. Like that's not the craziest thing in the world. Um, and we have Septa Meribald's story of a black iron dragon rusting and turning red years later. So like this is some story about I think the end of the crossroads. And it's kind of like just a metaphor where young Griff is the black dragon. He goes into hiding across Essos, or he was always in hiding. He's in Essos. He comes back to Westeros, and he's a red dragon. He's in real Targaryen now. It's like, dude, it's fake. Um, and then we just have so much story emphasis on the Blackfyres, and they're brought up so much. It's like, Gurm, why are you yapping this much about the Blackfyres if they're going to have like no real effect on the story? And then some points against. The biggest one is just that the whole A Dance of Dragons epilogue is Varys telling Kevin his big evil bad guy plan while Kevin is dying. It's like, why lie to a dying man? Well, I can think of some reasons to lie to a dying man. Maybe you're not only talking to a dying man. Varys knows that people can be in the walls. Varys has little birds who are around. Maybe Varys suspects that one of the little birds is like betraying him and is snitching. Or Varys thinks that someone might be in the walls, and Varys is. And it would also be like really good for Varys, right? If one of his little birds was secretly a double agent, but Varys knew, and the little bird didn't know that Varys knew he was a double agent. And so Varys is like, oh, Aegon is this and this and this, and he's saying it to a dying man. The little bird is going to go tell whoever they're working for, whoever they're being a double agent for, and he's going to be like, oh man, this is definitely true. He said it to a dying man. He didn't even know I was there. Blah blah blah. Yeah. And the other point against it is like if young Griff himself thinks he is truly Aegon the Sixth Targaryen, what even is the point of him being a Blackfyre? Like when you tell young Griff, oh yeah, your whole life is actually a lie. Um, your whole justification for why you've waged all this war is completely false. The pretenders I told you about and slandered, that's you. That's you. You're the pretender. You're the fake. You're the fraud. Like, what's the point of that? I feel like that's got to be bad parenting. Just okay, well, parenting stuff we'll get into later, but that's just not how you raise a kid, man. That's rough. And I know it's a rough world in the Song of Ice and Fire, but jeez. Okay, next. Here's like the addendum to this theory that Illyrio plus Sarah equals young Griff. So Illyrio is the father. This lady Sarah is the mother. They had sex, or maybe a stork delivered it or something, and out comes young Griff. So Sarah was Illyrio's second wife, who he allegedly found in a Mycenae pillow house. Um, Points in favor of this Illyrio plus Sarah theory is that Sarah like looks Valyrian. She has apparently blondish, silverish hair, which is Valyrian, and has big blue eyes, which is also like Valyrian enough. We know Queen Alysanne, whatever, Jaehaerys' sister wife, had big blue eyes, so very possible. Also, Sarah like decently sounds like a Valyrian name. It's not like It's not like Stacy, or some shit. Um, this could also like explain why Illyrio would be involved in this plot at all. He's talking to Tyrion about this, and he's just capping his ass off. He's like, "Oh, I could be master of coin." Like, dude, you're already rich. Like, clearly, you're not doing this just to get a job. Like, you're not doing this to put something on your LinkedIn, dude. Why are we lying here? Um, he's always swearing by his sweet Sarah's hand, which is like mad creepy, but um, understandable if you like really loved Sarah and you were doing stuff for Sarah's son and your son. But yeah, young Griff being Illyrio's son explains why Illyrio has any skin in the game. Because like, why would a magister of Pentos care who sits the Iron Throne? Like that's one of the big questions that Tyrion has, and I think this answers that question. I think his answer to Tyrion was insufficient. I think Tyrion peeped that, but I think this answers it. This also would justify the inclusion of the male Blackfyre heirs dying out line because, oh yeah, here's the female line who didn't die out. There you go. Also, Illyrio has clothes for a young boy, like they can fit Tyrion. It's pretty suspicious. Why do you have clothes for that could fit a dwarf? Are you housing dwarves all the time? No. Are you housing a son who grew up? It's possible. Illyrio also has a statue that like kind of resembles young Griff, like a pretty weird. Like who else would the statue be? Like why would Germ include a statue wow, oh my god, a statue in Illyrio's manse if it was just of some like random other kid? I think it's got to tie back into the story, and I think it ties back in here. Also, in the Cushing Library drafts, Illyrio has gifts for young Griff. Gifts you don't just give to random political guy that you're kind of supporting in his regime. Give gifts to your son for like his birthday and Christmas and stuff. And you hope for Father's Day he will get you back. And then points against. All right, I'll be honest. This is a pretty weak point against, but like, oh, Sarah's from a Lycinian pillow house. Of course she was brilliant, but like, of course it's also just like a great cover story. This is kind of a straw man against point. I'm trying to think of some other like good arguments against this theory. Um, Young Griff could just be like some other random Blackfyre from some unknown female line. I don't know. There is like this one criticism against it. It's like this timeline criticism that Varys uh, Varys leaves Essos for King's Landing in 278 AC. Illyrio gets married to his first wife, so not Sarah, around this time. But young Griff is born in like 281 or 282 AC, which is like a pretty quick turnaround. But like, that's not an argument defeating level turnaround. Like, there's so many plots involved. Sarah could have been his mistress the whole time. He could have met Sarah before he met his first wife. So many moving parts going on there that I really don't think that's like a counter argument. Um, It's not to me. Okay, next theory that'll delve into that even a bit more. Varys and Sarah are actually Blackfyre siblings. Another thing I forgot to mention is that Sarah, spelled Serra, might not be like the real spelling. It may be Saera, which is like a more Valyrian spelling, but like who cares? So Varys is like that bald schemer guy, and some points in favor of him being a Blackfyre. Um, is that one, he shaves his head to hide Valyrian looking hair, just like our guy Egg. It's like a little parallel. Um, this would also explain Illyrio and Varys' tight friendship. They're not just business partners who met in the streets of Pentos. Uh, they're actually brother-in-laws. They're actually in-laws, which would much tighter friendship. I mean, maybe y'all are better friends with your business partners than your brother-in-laws. I don't know. I'm not married. I can't really speak on that. But people who I know who are brother-in-laws, they seem pretty chill. Varys sounds like a Valyrian name, but like that's like so obviously a weak point because of Varys. Like is actually a Blackfyre, I'm sure he changed his name. I don't think I don't think Varys Blackfyre is his real name. I think his real name is like some other Valyrian sounding name, Blackfyre. And then like by far the strongest point is that Varys tells a story about him getting castrated by some sorcerer. Um, think about this from the sorcerer's perspective, man. Just put your feet in this guy's shoes. If you're going out, if you're going out, are you just gonna just castrate random kids to do your magic? Like that's really random. And Varys just so happened to get caught up in this guy who's just cutting off random kids' balls. That's highly unlikely. What's way more likely is that okay, you're a sorcerer guy. You do some magic method to sniff out a guy with king's blood. You find Varys, who's a Blackfyre, he has king's blood. You castrate him. Like this was targeted. It makes way more sense for Varys's castration to be a targeted attack for king's blood, which we know is more powerful for magic, than for Varys to just truly be uh, a random chance encounter victim of castration. Like that is crazy. That's so unlucky if Varys really got hit with that. But whatever. Again, well, Varys is from Lys. We'd expect him to have Valyrian features anyway. Again, this is just a cover up, bro. Like, oh my gosh, he's from Lys. Of course, his name sounds Valyrian because he's from Lys. Like, that's weak. That's weak. This is also like a straw man argument, though. I don't think anyone. I don't think anyone who no one who no one who disagrees with this theory is bringing up, oh, he's from Lys as like a real counter argument. But it does also like make the male Blackfyre line statement technically false because like no, there's actually one right here. Some counter arguments is that maybe Varys and Sarah also come from a female line, like they're only Blackfyres on their mother's side, or maybe Illyrio was just lying, or maybe Illyrio was just wrong, um, or maybe he's not counting Varys because he got his balls cut off. Um, lots of reasons, lots of ways to reconcile it. It's a technicality. Okay, next. This really puts some pieces together. Bear with me here. Varys and Sarah were on the run. So there's this guy named Aelius the Monstrous. He was the leader of the Blackfyres during the Fifth Blackfyre Rebellion, aka the War of the Nine Kings. And Meleys was not like the main Blackfyre heir while he was alive. This guy named Daemon was. Um, Not Daemon the First, not Daemon the Second, not Daemon the Third. It's Daemon. We're going to call him Daemon the Fourth. He was never crowned, but we're going to call him Daemon the Fourth. These guys were cousins. We don't know what kind of cousins, presumably first cousins. But Meleys kills Daemon, quote unquote, the Fourth to become the captain of the Golden Company. Um, and this theory is that Varys and Sarah are Daemon the Fourth's kids. So, how does this theory go? Okay. Meleys kills Daemon. Varys and Sarah see this and they're like, oh shit, that's not good. That's not good. This nigga just killed our dad. Um, and so after Meleys kills Daemon, they run away. They try to get away because they know that Meleys what killed them next or whatever. But it doesn't really make sense for there to be a known Blackfyre heir, aka Varys, to just be alive during this time. So to reconcile this in the theory, either Meleys is putting it out there that Varys died, or, which I think is more likely, Varys faked his death. Maybe Varys and Sarah both faked their deaths, and Meleys claimed both of them died or whatever. The main part is that there cannot be a known male direct Blackfyre heir who actually has a better claim than Meleys out and about during Meleys' time. Um, so one of those two has to happen. Okay, now they're on the run. Stuff happens. Varys gets his balls cut off. How do you recover from that, man? Imagine you're in the streets of Mir or wherever you was at the time. You get your balls cut off by the sorcerer. Who's gonna help you? Well, your sister. Your sister can help you make sure you don't like die or bleed out or something like that. I don't know. Eventually, they meet Illyrio and Pentos. Uh, they start off as just business partners. Varys and Illyrio are business partners. Illyrio meets Sarah just because Sarah and Varys are hanging around each other, the brother and sister. And Illyrio and Sarah, I think, naturally and truly start to fall in love. I think this is one of the only genuine parts of Illyrio's story, that Illyrio is truly in love with Sarah. So Illyrio and Sarah are in love. This relationship builds, and because Sarah also reciprocates this, they tell Illyrio the secret. They tell Illyrio that they're secretly blackfyres. And now that they know this, now that Illyrio knows this, he's like, "Oh man, we got to get back for you guys, man. Y'all really were supposed to be on the throne. Rah rah rah. Ares sucks. Whatever, right?" Now they're cooking up in Pentos. They're building political influence. They scheme to get Varys into the small council just to get close to sources of power. That way he's able to do stuff later. I don't know. They're just trying to put pieces in play. And around this time, um, Illyrio marries the daughter of a cousin to the Prince of Pentos. Um, I don't know if that. I don't know how well that really fits into the theory. To be honest, like I don't know if Illyrio did that for real political purposes or whatever. But anyways, when Varys goes to Westeros to serve in King Aerys' court, Sarah stays behind in Essos with Illyrio. Shortly after the death of Illyrio's first wife, Illyrio and Sarah get married, and they conceive young Griff. And now, boom, the Lyseni Pillow House is like a perfect cover story to all this. Some evidence is there's really none. I made all that up. But that is the theory. It's really circumstantial. Just trying to like connect a few dots and like hanging plot threads. It's not like anything directly suggests this, but it's like based on what we know and trying to tell a cohesive story through what we know. What were the Blackfyres up to? And this is what I think they were up to. I've also provided this handy little chart. This is a family tree. This is a family tree. Blackfyre family tree. Very incomplete. Here we at the top, we have Daemon the First Blackfyre. Daemon the First had seven sons and $3, and I'm not showing all that shit because that's ridiculous. So we only have son six and son seven. These are the youngest two sons. Um, his other sons, who you may have heard of, are Aegon, Aemon, Daemon the Second, Hagon, and Aenys. Um, so those are the five of their sons. You've probably heard of Kala Blackfyre, who got married to Bittersteel, and then he has two other daughters. And we know that Meleys and Daemon the Fourth, who's the guy I'm saying that Meleys killed to become captain, are cousins. We don't know what kind of cousins. For the purposes of this theoretical family tree, I'm making my first cousins. I'm making Daemon the son, a son of the sixth son, and Meleys the son of the seventh son. We know Meleys can be older than Daemon the Fourth, but he has to be behind him in terms of like being an heir, just because Daemon the Fourth was captain of the Golden Company, so like presumably he is higher up in like the line of succession than Meleys. And then the theory that Varys and Sarah are siblings. Sarah can be older, Varys can be older, doesn't really matter. Sarah and Illyrio are married. They have young Griff. And now young Griff is Daemon the First Blackfyre's great great grandson, son, grandson, great granddaughter, great great grandson. Okay, you may be thinking, Who's this little guy, Maynard? He's actually just mentioned in some early drafts of A Dance of Dragons. I decided to include him for fun. I'll be bringing him up later. But yeah, the group chats had Blackfyre and Aegon the First Crown. The group chat's actually the Golden Company. So the last known wielder of the sword Blackfyre. So I'm not talking about House Blackfyre. I'm talking about the sword Blackfyre. Was Bittersteel Aegor Rivers. And then the Conqueror's Crown, Aegon the First Crown, was lost in Daeron the First conquest of Dorne. So the theory is just that the Golden Company possesses these items, and then they'll become somewhat relevant to Aegon's cause in the future. Like Aegon will equip them and look all legitimate and stuff. So some points in favor is that the Cushing Library drafts of A Dance with Dragons mention that the Blackfyres have three treasures. It explicitly says that one of them is a clutch of dragon eggs, which is like not relevant to this part of the theory. And then presumably one of the treasures is Blackfyre because it's like their whole shtick. Um, and then the third treasure is like more up for debate, but for this theory, we're going to go with Aegon the First Crown. Um, Another reason is because Illyrio in these same drafts mentioned that he like mentions a sword. I think Tyrion like overhears some people talking and the word sword is mentioned. And then some of the reasons that I think that the Blackfyres have Aegon the First crown is that the crown was lost in Daeron the First conquest of Dorne. Daeron was like won some battles in the Bone Way, and the Ironwoods are like a very major house. They're like the second biggest house in Dorne, most powerful house in Dorne, and they're like kind of near that area. Um, like kind of near it. But the crown was like kind like likely lost around the Ironwoods area, and the Ironwoods side with the Blackfyres in the first, third, and fourth Blackfyre rebellions. So maybe at some point they recovered the crown and then they presented it to the Blackfyres. Other points in favor is that this gives young Griff symbols of legitimacy. So he has the Conqueror's sword, he has the Conqueror's crown, he bears the Conqueror's name. This is really literally exactly what we heard in House of the Dragon, except Aegon the Second actually had a dragon, which is pretty cool. Um, which is low key another theory. Aegon could ride a dragon. That complete it. Then he'd really be the conqueror. Um, but yeah, I think it narratively, I think giving young Griff all these symbols of legitimacy brings greater strength to his challenge against Danny, and she'll have to like overcome that. And young Griff will be like super popular with the people and stuff. Okay, some points against. Ironwoods could just keep the crown. Like, if I came up on a really cool crown, I'm not just gonna give it to my boss. I guess that's lame. I'm gonna keep the crown. Also, the Ironwoods didn't support Meleys the monster, so they weren't a part of the fifth Black. They weren't on, at least to our knowledge, they weren't on Meleys' side during the fifth Blackfyre Rebellion. So, like, clearly they weren't like the biggest diehard supporters, And they also weren't in the second Blackfyre Rebellion, but it's low key mad far for them. Like White Walls, I'm pretty sure is in the Riverlands, and Ironwoods are in Dorne. Like no one who's really making that trek. Um, but yeah, yeah. And then another point. Oh, there's another point that I'm forgetting. Ironwoods. Oh my God, it'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. Oh, here, there it is. Yeah, the point against is that if the Ironwoods had the crown the whole time, if the Ironwoods have had this crown the whole time, why don't we hear about it appearing in the first Blackfyre Rebellion, the third Blackfyre Rebellion, the fourth Blackfyre Rebellion? It's because we really just don't have a lot of historical details on those rebellions in the first place. Like, name one battle from the third Blackfyre Rebellion. You can't. Name one battle from the fourth Blackfyre Rebellion. You can't. You can actually only name like two battles in all the Blackfyre Rebellions. You can name Redgrass Field You can name some battles in the Stepstones, like maybe there's some stuff in the first battle, like whatever. You can name like probably 5 battles across all 5 rebellions, which is like ridiculous. Like there's just really just not enough resolution to really be like, oh, we never hear about it in the historical record, therefore it's probably not there. I don't think that's a valid point. And you can say the same thing about the sword of Blackfyre. We don't hear about it technically in the third or fourth or fifth Blackfyre rebellion. We kind of just presume that it's like with the Golden Company and with Bitterstone and whatnot, but whatever. I think this theory is very likely. I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised if young Griff did not pop out with the crown and Blackfyre at some point in the Winds of Winter or during the spring. Okay, this is a really interesting theory by Michael Talks About Stuff, and I think he got a theory from someone else as well. But this is a theory that, and not okay. When I say that, like the other theories aren't mine either. Like I'm compiling theories here. Uh, I'll try to give credit where credit is due, and there's a lot of credit due. Um, but yeah, this is a theory that Illyrio gave Danny the dragon eggs to frame her. So one of the biggest mysteries in the story is why is Illyrio giving up these incredibly valuable dragon eggs to Danny, who he clearly did not really care that much about? Like, why are you giving Danny something as valuable as dragon eggs? Well, in the Cushing Library drafts, super clutch drafts, by the way, they mentioned that the Blackfyres have a clutch of dragon eggs. I mentioned that in the last slide. And that Meles sacrificed his son Maynard. I told you he was going to pop back up. Uh, by trying to like hatch the dragon. Like he did a blood sacrifice, sacrificed his son, try to hatch some eggs, didn't hatch. Story of the past 150 years. All right. So when Illyrio gives Danny these eggs, no way in hell Illyrio thought that Danny would be able to hatch them. If he knew or thought it was possible for these eggs to hatch, he would have tried it, and he probably did. He probably heard about Meles doing this method and trying to sacrifice his son. The Blackfyres have probably been trying to hatch these eggs for the entirety of the time that they had them. And these eggs, by the way, are probably Alyssa Farman's eggs. I'm ignoring House of the Dragon doing that weird shit where it's like, oh, it's actually Sunfire's egg. Like, no, yeah, like no, it's not. It's not Sunfire's. Wait, no, Cyrax, not Sunfire. Oh my god, no, I don't think they're Cyrax's eggs. I think they're Alyssa Farman from Fire and Blood, from Dreamfire, but whatever. Um, okay, yeah. So no way Illyrio thinks these eggs are gonna hatch. Illyrio has probably tried a couple times to hatch them. He's heard about dozens of attempts to hatch them over the past century. No reason to think that Danny's gonna pull something out of her ass and make all 3 of these eggs hatch. But even so, even if there's 0% chance these eggs hatch, you could still let young Griff have them and like, oh, that's cool. The Targaryens are coming back and he has eggs. They're not gonna hatch, but it's cool that he has eggs. It could be just another symbol of legitimacy. He has the crown, he has a sword, he has eggs. Oh, nice. Super legit. So so why did he give him up? What's going on? Well, the Cushing Library drafts, when they stated that the Blackfires have a clutch of eggs, it stated that as if it's a known fact around the world that, oh yeah, the Blackfires have a clutch of dragons. This is known. Everyone knows this. And then Illyrio gifted these eggs that are like known to be Blackfire eggs to Danny, right? So imagine a scenario where Danny pulls up to Westeros somehow, some way. Illyrio didn't predict all this far, but Danny and Viserys show up to Westeros with their army or whatever, and they've got these eggs, and they're going against Aegon. They're battling for Westeros, and Illyrio can be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Those eggs! I have a paper trail showing that these are Blackfire eggs. Like these are for sure blackfyre eggs. You guys are blackfyres. You guys are frauds. Blah blah blah. Okay, you probably couldn't do this to Viserys because Viserys like is obviously Ares' son. But you can maybe do it to Dany. Dany has a very suspicious past, as a billion theories demonstrate. The Page of Lies, Preston Jacobs. So yeah, like Dany pulls up to Westeros with these eggs, and Illyrio's like, "Wait a minute, those are Blackfyre eggs. Everyone throw tomatoes at her." Um, yeah, that's the theory. Okay, last theory, hopefully, I think. Young Griff is a bright fire. This means that Young Griff is somehow descended from the Blackfyres and Aryan Bright Flame. Some points in favor. Aryan had a trueborn son named Maegor. And Maegor is like for sure, definitely was supposed to be king. Like he was for sure next in line to the throne. Succession totally should have passed to him, but Bloodraven probably did some fugazi shit and messed it all up or whatever. Anyway, great council of I think 233 AC passed him over in favor of Aegon the Fifth Targaryen. Woohoo, we all fuck with Egg, so I'm not gonna complain too much. But Aerion Brightflame's true born son Maegor kind of got snubbed. Another point in favor, and that we'll plant that seed for later. We'll talk about it. Um, Actually, no, we'll talk about it now. So there's this guy Maegor, Brightflame Targaryen, whatever, and we have no information on like how he died, how he grew up, whatever. He could be having heirs. He could have heirs just running around, and that's kind of part of the theory. One of the fundamental points. And another point is that Gurm, like for sure, had the idea of there being a rival Targaryen outside of like Jon and Dany before he actually knew about the Blackfyres. So if you notice, a Game of Thrones, a Clash of Kings, and the Hedge Knight have zero mention of the Blackfyres, but the Sworn Sword, a Storm of Swords, and everything like thereafter all mention the Blackfyres. That's because he literally just the idea of the Blackfyres like existing and rebelling in Targaryen history did not exist to him in his head. However, as I mentioned earlier with Dany's like Mummer's dragon vision in a Clash of Kings, the seeds were already planted for there to be some other Targaryen ruler or like claimant. And even like Arya in a Game of Thrones is overhearing Illyrio and Varys talking. Like they're clearly they're up to something, right? So there was always that theory that Varys and Illyrio were going to be supporting some other dragon Valyrian claimant besides Dany. Um, and then we have Aerion spending time in Lys during exile. So he could be, having bastards in Lys or like um, real heirs in Lys and stuff like that. I don't know. Whatever. Um, some points against this. Dude, no way they let Maegor Targaryen, the like for sure rightful heir to the throne, a lot of freedom. No way they let him have a nice marriage and have a lot of kids and go to other countries and blah blah blah. Like there's just no way. Also, the bright fire theory, in my opinion, is just like kind of tacky. Like you already have the Blackfyre theory that explains so much, and now you're just trying to, oh my gosh, and there's this other line, there's the royalty combined, and it's cool, and it's like the superpower. It's like R plus L equals J again. It's like I didn't even like it that much the first time, man. Like who cares? Who cares? But it is interesting. Like, why are you leaving these lingering threads of the bright flames if you're not going to do anything with them? So, like, I see why this theory exists, but I don't really like it. Some possibilities is that like Illyrio is actually the son of Maegor Targaryen, and then some Blackfyre female, and then Illyrio is Younger's father, or Sarah is a bright flame, and Illyrio is um, descended from the Blackfyre from like a female line.